Hi, Eric.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing just fine. Let me put my little video. Are you going to record this? Because I wasn't sure. Should I record it? Hold on. I'm trying to open my video, okay?
Yes, I can record it if you like.
Yeah, just hold on. There it is. Yeah. No, I just think, I just want to know if you're not going to record it, then I'll record it. But if you're going to record it, then I don't think both of us need to. Then you just send me the link. But I know usually when it's a different admin, you like have to give me permission to record and all that. So if you can just record, if you don't mind, then I can save it and just put it on my website. That's it. That's all I wanted to ask.
Actually, it's recording right now. Okay, we are now live. Welcome to the webinar today with Dr. Lulu. Our attendees are joining right now, so we will give it a few minutes before we go live. The microphones and the cameras are turned off for our guest, but we will have the chat function. We encourage everybody to go ahead and use the chat box, list where you're from, who you are, and we appreciate everybody joining us today. We will start in just a few minutes.
Dr. Umeh, do you want me to call you Dr. Lulu or Uchenna Umeh?
So it's actually like a trademark. So Dr. Lulu is fine. Dr. Lulu, the malnutrition is better, but we could do both.
Alrighty, welcome everybody. Once again, we will start our webinar in just a few minutes. Feel free to use the chat box to announce who you are and where you're from. The cameras and the microphones are turned off. We do have the Q&A box that you can use later in the presentation to ask questions. Please use that instead of the chat box because it'll get lost. Chat box. This is going to be a CEU presentation today. So at the end, you will be able to click on a link to do an evaluation and also print off your certificate. Now that's a beautiful process and it works about 90% of the time. Isn't that right, Darcel?
Yes.
Now there's security systems with a lot of companies, and sometimes it prevents people from printing off websites. If you do have issues, just reply, email us. We'll get you the certificate or the link to the evaluation. So that link will be posted at the end of the presentation and also in an email tomorrow. Thank you to Darcel Grounds for coordinating the CEUs and putting it all together today from Starlite Recovery Center. Darcel, you want to talk and tell everybody who Starlite is?
All right. Thank you all for joining us again for a CE. We are going to be trying to do these every 2 weeks. Also, if you're interested in speaking for us, please send that information to us. I'll put my email in there because we're always looking for speakers. Starlite Recovery Center, located in the Hill Country. We have over 60 years of experience. Starlite detoxes off of most substances. Things like methadone do have to be tapered down. The ages that we are able to serve are male and female, 18 and above, and female adolescents, 13 to 17 years old. We take most insurances and TRICARE, and we are starting to take Medicaid. So please do call us with Medicaid as we come online with more of the contracts for the Medicaid. Out there in the Hill Country, people are detoxing, staying with us up to 21 to 30 days. The adolescents can get even longer based on medical necessity. Big Time Family Program. We do have some breakout programs for our veterans and first responders. The Freedom Program is for our LGBTQIA members, and the Journey Program for people that Christianity is the guidebook that they want to follow through their recovery. And I think I missed something, but I'll be back. There's one more. Oh, we have a virtual IOP now. So again, we can send you information about our program. And now, Eric, may I introduce our speaker?
Yes, please do. To get this webinar going. It's going to be a great one today.
All right. Dr. Lulu, do you have your picture? Hi.
Yes, I'm back.
All right, I'm going to introduce you. And this is Dr. Lulu, the Momatrician. So Dr. Lulu is a former lieutenant colonel and commander in the U.S. Air Force. Uchenna Umeh, MD, is a mom, pediatrician, global speaker on youth suicide, best-selling author, and youth suicide activist. She is Nigerian born and the CEO of Tina Live and Dr. Lulu's Youth Health Center, both dedicated to the high-risk teens and suicide prevention. No stranger to suicidal ideation herself, she started speaking publicly about suicide prevention in 2016 after losing physician colleagues and a patient to suicide. Her mission is to end youth suicide globally through her work with at-risk youth, parents, and communities. She is a regular on media outlets, freelance writer, podcaster, and it's in parentheses, Suicide Pages with Dr. Lulu, blogger at Words by Black Butterfly, and parent coach, and was recently selected to speak at a TEDx event. She has been recognized by the Texas Medical Association, Association of Nigerian Physicians in the Americas, Nigerians in the Diaspora Commission, and the Texas State House of Representatives. Nice. And I just want to add personally, this weekend, I got to join on some of the panel discussions that Dr. Lulu provided the public, and one of them was males and racism, and she had 6 males on her panel of different cultures and ethnicity background, and it was the most informative. I learned a lot. Thank you for that, Dr. Lulu. I think that thing needs to go, that presentation needs to go viral. Just a lot of insight in there, so I'm going to let you take it from here. Please, everybody, put your questions in the question and answer box and don't do the chat with questions so that we don't lose them in the chat. So the Q&A box is where you can put your questions and we will try to get to them. Thank you, Dr. Lulu.
Thank you. I'm going to get started here in about 2 seconds. So my name is Dr. Lulu, AKA the Momatrician. I'm a board certified pediatrician and I'm a mom. That's basically in a combination. That's a combination of me being a board certified pediatrician and then a mom. That's it. There's no special sauce to it. So we're going to be talking about your teen and trauma during COVID-19. And I know last 2 weeks, the original title was You, Your Teen, and COVID-19, and I thought I liked that. But then we've had so much trauma in the last 2 weeks. I was like, Darcel, we need to change this and throw in that nice word there called trauma. And yes, I'm outdoors. I live in San Antonio, and I'm at the backyard, which is my office. And sometimes you hear the birds, sometimes you hear the plane. Sometimes you see Super Grover. I mean, it is what it is. But thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, Darcel. She knows where my heart is. So we're going to get started. And so bear with me if I have a little struggle with tech. I am a queenager. This is new stuff for me, but it is what it is. So boom. So this talk is going to be a trigger for some people. And it's completely okay if you feel a need to leave because it's a bit hard for you. I completely understand. If you want to completely mute me, that's okay too. It is going to be a trigger. I don't know any other way to tell you the stuff that I talk about except to just go ahead and tell you. So it is going to be a little bit traumatic for some people. So who am I? My name is Dr. Lulu. Like I said, I was born, bred, buttered, and slightly burned in Nigeria. I emigrated here to the US in 1994 because I wanted to do my residency, and I went to Howard University. So if you know about Howard, just give me an HU, you know, is how we roll, okay? So that is my power pose, and that look in my eye is I'm telling suicide to bring it. It is one of the things that most people don't talk about, suicide. And it's like, what do you mean? I said to them, if I don't talk about it, who will? So I talk about suicide. I don't enjoy talking about it, but someone has to do it. So in the year 2000, my friend, we're going to call NG. Her name is Ngozi. She was a Nigerian. She was 33 years old. She was my buddy. I was 7.5 months pregnant with my second son. And I had this nagging feeling to call her. Something said, call this chica. And I never did. I didn't call her. And then finally one day I was like, I'm just going to call her and just find out what's going on. And when I called her, her 16-year-old niece said words that I'll never forget. She said, my auntie blew her brains out a few weeks ago. Believe it or not, that phrase put me into labor, and my now 19-year-old son, soon to be 20 in July, came in 6 weeks early because of that. So it was a lot of trauma for me. While she wasn't my best friend, she was a good enough friend that did that to me. And if you've been listening to the news, you know that doctors generally have a very, very high rate, if not the highest rate of suicide amongst all white collar workers. In the year 2008, my patient MK came to see me with his mother. I did diagnose him with depression. I'll tell you that because his PHQ-9 was off the roof. And then his mom said he was acting weird and acting different. She wanted me to check him for drugs. And I was like, I don't know. I think he's really depressed. Why don't we also get him counseling, you know? And his mom was like, no, not really. I don't think if it's just depression, then I'm fine. Then it's fine, because I had depression and my sisters and brothers had depression and we all did okay. And essentially, he did not do okay, because on the 4th of July that year, in front of his entire family, he put a double-barrel shotgun in his mouth and pulled the trigger. And then, so that was my first patient that died by suicide. And then I had in 2012, I joined the Air Force as a lieutenant colonel, and I was commander, but I was still a pediatrician. And then I started seeing more and more patients presenting with cutting and suicidal ideation and all that. I'm like, wait, what's going on with this? But then I kind of chalked it to military life. You know, the kids are going through a lot. Their parents are deployed. There's war and all that. But then after I left the Air Force, after I was honorably discharged, I joined Communicare, which is here in San Antonio. And that's when I started seeing that, no, this was not just the military. This was majority of my patients, my teenagers. And then unfortunately or fortunately, I had a 7-year-old patient present who had a history of ADHD, came to see me with his mom because he had tried to hang himself in his bedroom twice. And so that kind of triggered an avalanche of emotions, of course, naturally for me as a mother. And then I started asking myself, why? Why would a 7-year-old kid want to kill himself? Why would anybody want to kill themselves? Never mind that I was suicidal myself after my divorce and joining the Air Force and had to file bankruptcy and all that. But I was more worried about my patients, because it's what we do, you know? So in May of 2018, I quit traditional medicine, is what I call it. And then I basically put in my notes. No, the little boy came to see me in May. And in September, I quit traditional medicine and started writing and speaking. And I opened my practice in August of last year, which is called Dr. Lulu's Youth Health Center, is here in San Antonio, Texas. And I'm also the CEO of Teen Alive, which is just an online resource for teenagers that are troubled, okay? And so I call myself a suicide activist, not to be confused with an advocate, because I'm not a suicide advocate, I'm an activist. And I think, because I can, that I'm the future United Nations speaker on youth suicide prevention. If your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough. So that's my dream. And luckily for me, I actually have a talk with the United Nations in Ghana virtually this Saturday. So my dream is already coming true. So for everyone who is present, if you do me a favor and just tell me how you're doing mentally this afternoon. We're going to do a quick mental health check-in. How are you truly, honestly doing? I'll be looking at the chats, and please be honest. This is a no judgment zone. I have had my own struggles. I'm not always doing well. I mean, it's just what it is. You know, sometimes I struggle myself. So if you don't mind telling me how you're doing. See if I know what I'm doing over here. I'm doing very well. I'm stressed. I'm okay. I'm here with some stress, mentally good to go, doing well. I'm good listening to you and to suicide, something. Doing well, blessed, thank God. I'm happy. This is good. This is good. Up and down. You know what? I like the lady that said up and down. They're coming a lot, but I like the lady that said up and down. Sleep deprived. That's wonderful. I'm struggling. You see, this is what I'm talking about. Some of us are doing great. We're all like the fingers, in your hand, right? Some of us are doing well. This lady said 3 out of 5, the world is heavy, which is so true. Happy to be at work. This is so true. I got a thumbs up right there. This is awesome. Okay, but could be better. This is true. Feeling antsy. I'm not sure what that means because I'm Nigerian, but I think it means not doing so well. Mourning and passing on to my dog. I'm not sure what. I struggle with the family. Yes. This is so good. So thank you all so much for being honest. This is a no judgment zone. We obviously cannot help other people if we are not ourselves whole. So my daughter just graduated and left town, and yes, I feel you, Yolanda. I feel you. My baby graduates in 3 or 4 days, and is going to go to Massachusetts, yes, for his master's. And I am sick to my stomach because it's a black male. Sick to my stomach. So thank you all so much for sharing that. That was awesome. So I do these things because I also want you all to be awake. So why am I giving this talk? First of all, Darcel made me, right? But second of all, I actually reached out to Darcel and her colleague, and Alex, I think is his name, because I wanted to talk about this. I know that we in the mental health arena, we do worry about others, that is true. But specifically, overall, globally in the world, we mostly worry as parents, and I'm asking everyone who is present today to take off your mental health arena worker hat and put on your parent hat, because originally this talk was supposed to be you, your teen, and COVID-19. So really, technically, that's who I'm talking to, the parent in you. Okay, so I'm having this talk because I realized that a lot of us parents, if we have smaller children, we tend to kind of worry about them a little bit more. And then if we have elderly parents, we worry about them a little bit more. Then we worry about ourselves before we worry about our young adults and our teenage children. That is true, unless that child is maybe the last child or has some drama that's got you up at night. Generally, we leave teenagers alone because, they also want to be left alone. So I wanted us to talk about teenagers a little bit today because I think it's important to share what they themselves are going through, what my patients are going through. In my practice, I only see anxious and suicidal teens. I don't see any other kind of patients. I only see teens that really need me. And so they call me, they make their own appointments, and then we talk for an hour and a half, however long they need to talk to me while they're not doing so good. And so I just thought, you know what, the last new patient I had, she was having a lot of anxiety, just not able to cope with all of this quarantine stuff. And so I ask you for grace today. I ask you to be kind. I ask you, when you think about your teenagers, to please remember that sometimes they themselves, they want to talk to you, but they don't know how to talk to you. They want to come to you, but they don't know how to come to you. So leave an open door or leave a crack open. Let your kids know that they can always come to you. So our first case today is Miss Emily Owen, that beautiful girl. I don't know if you can see her eyes. This picture on my right, I think on everybody's right. If you look at her eyes, you can see that there's a little bit of sadness in those eyes. Maybe not so much this one, but really once you see this, and then you look here, and you can also see it here. So Miss Owen, Emily, breaks my heart, but she killed herself actually I looked this up while we were getting ready, March 25th, 2020, she killed herself. She's a British teenager. She was in the last few years diagnosed with high functioning autism and had struggled on a daily basis with a battle to fit in. And if you know autistic kids, whether they're high functioning or not, they struggle with change, right? And so some of us have not maybe thought about it. I know I hadn't until I started preparing for this talk. I really had not given the fact that autistic kids grow up to become autistic teens, to become autistic adults, and they do not do well with change. And so this little girl did not. And so the news articles, all of them said she could not cope, she could not cope, she could not cope. She couldn't face coronavirus isolation. She thought her world was closing in on her. Plans were being canceled and she was being stuck inside. I'm going to take a moment to say to you again that autistic people do not do well with change. So plans being canceled, for me as a speaker, I lost like 5 good solid paying gigs because of COVID-19. But I was able to bounce back. I'm an adult, but she could not. She has autism. She's struggling with change. So her family, obviously, they're asking us to be more aware and support people that are struggling with mental health issues, which I know you all know. But remember, there's still a pandemic. There is still a pandemic. It hasn't been called off by anybody. We're still waiting. Okay, so her family suspect that the fear of the unknown may have driven her over the edge. this is real for some teenagers. And then we all, for those of you who live in the US of A, you all probably heard about Hayden, or at least you heard about his dad. He went on Facebook and it was really, really bitter, talked about how Hayden and him played video games and how much Hayden loved video games and how much Hayden hated being at home and not being able to go out. So his father actually blames COVID-19 and the quarantine and actually reached out to his dad. No, he didn't respond to me yet, but I reached out to his father several weeks ago when this thing first hit the airwaves, just to first of all tell him I'm sorry, of course, for the loss of his child, but I also said I just want him to know that, you know, there's no winning here. You know, it's a pandemic. It's the first time in almost everybody who's alive today, all our memories, nobody remembers anything like this. Someone who was born in 1918 when they had the Spanish flu is so much older now that they probably, maybe they remember, but there's very few people in the community, in the society that remember that. My family in Nigeria, people in Lesotho, people in Guyana, people in Lithuania, Russia, Australia, we're all going through this. And so he killed himself because his father thinks that, first of all, he threw the remote control on the screen, and then his father did say that he has a history of throwing his own remote control on the screen. So of course, our kids are like little SpongeBobs and SpongeBobettes, right? So the little boy did what his father does, and then apparently he was not happy because he didn't want to ask for another screen. And I think he got another screen, but either way, he broke it again, and then he just couldn't handle it, right? And so his dad said, which is very important to me, that the child had no history of depression or anxiety. I need us to listen to that, which the father said, because even though I don't know if there are any medical doctors in this space right now, but most medical doctors like me, most psychiatrists, when you bring a child like this to them, they will be first to prescribe medication. And so my concern is, if you know me, you know in my practice, I don't write prescriptions. If a patient comes to see me, literally, because I work with them on a different level, they all on their own come off of their medications. Okay, so Hayden died April 17th, just 4 days before his 13th birthday. But his father said he did not have a history of depression, but if he had been taken to go see someone, they would have prescribed antidepressants. They would have prescribed anti-anxiety medicines. But the problem with that is you're putting a Band-Aid over it. Not that it doesn't have a place in the world. Really, for me, you need to figure out the root cause of anything, or at least do it vis-a-vis, do it together, okay? His dad blames the isolation. He said there's no doubt in his mind that it was the reason. There's no doubt in his mind that there was something missing, and it was the fact that the little boy couldn't go and play with his friends. Social isolation is hard enough for adults, right? But it's even harder on kids, and that's what his father said, and that is true. So at this moment, I'm going to ask you who is listening to me to just type in the chat room, how have you been doing with this, specifically speaking, the social isolation aspect? How hard has it been for you? Be honest. Type in the chat box and tell me, how has it been for you, the social isolation? I don't like it. Very hard. There you go. There you go. I like that. I like that. Extremely hard. So not fun at all. Some nights are worse than others. Horrible. No, yes, and I'm a hugger, okay? I have fibromyalgia and I'm a hugger. Someone said, I hate it in caps. It's hard. I miss my friends. I too miss my friends. I cry every day. Yes, me too. I want to hug you too, baby girl. I want to hug you, and I'm a hugger. As an introvert with my family at home, it doesn't bother me much. Fantastic. You see, fingers on the hands. Some people do well, some people don't do well. Lonely sometimes, misinteraction. Humans by nature are social animals. We need each other, es verdad. I'm not going to lie about that. Hard time sleeping, that is true. I'm okay with being alone, but I hate not being able to do something. This stuff is going so fast. For me personally, I've always been more an introvert, and I'm content. That's my wife right there. She's very content with, she can stay by herself all day. Fatigued and tired, social butterfly, that's me. Actually, my blog is called, Yolanda, I'm gonna have to connect with you outside of this because this is the second thing you said now that I've seen. So I see you, girl. My blog is called Words by Black Butterfly because I am the social butterfly all day. Can you tell? So I try to think of it as a way to take a bit of a break. That is true. That is so true. That is so true. That is so true. That is so true. It's been hard. I love it. So thank you so much for being honest. Thank you so much for being honest. I'm a homebody. That's my wife right there. So this is great. This is exactly what I'm saying. Lots of boredom. So I could talk to you outside of this if you like about what you do about the boredom thing. I like having more time at home. This is great. I've planted all kinds of things in my backyard. I've planted all kinds of fruits in my backyard: okra, peanuts, corn, beans, peppers, you name it. My garden is growing now. So yes, I also enjoyed doing that. So thank you so much. Exhausted, somebody said. I want to break from the kids. This is honesty right here. Frustrating. This is so true. And the fact that we have to wear masks to go everywhere now. I mean, this is like, what? If anybody told me that 2020 was going to be like this, I would have asked for my money back, okay? She misses eating out with her friends and family. That is true. I like cooking. So that part I don't mind, but not much difference. So this is great. So this is wonderful. So thank you all so much. The next person we're going to discuss is Miss Joviani. She's 15 years old from California. And like I told Darcel at the beginning, if you look into her eyes, you'll probably not see any form of sadness in this picture. You probably would not. Now, Darcel and Alex, stand by because we're about to do that. So her mom says she struggled with staying at home. So at this point, I'm going to stop sharing, right? I'm going to try to share again, and I'm going to do this. Boom. Boom.
Bonnie Smith is described as a bright and talented 15-year-old Stockton girl. Here we go. She's known as a talented softball player and one with musical talent as well.
She was smart, she was funny, she was witty, she was so talented.
But Jo took her own life in her own home last week. Her mother says she struggled during the coronavirus pandemic and having to stay home.
The world was like taken away from her when she couldn't do sports. That was her world.
Danielle Hunt says this was a shock since Jo was such a happy girl.
They're out of their elements and they kind of don't know what to do with themselves.
Her mom is speaking out to help other parents.
I want people to understand that if it can happen to my kid that is fine and energetic and full of life and this and that, it can happen to anybody's kid.
Jo was a sophomore at Bear Creek High School. This weekend, more tragedy as two students from Oakdale High took their lives. Their bodies were found near a river with gunshot wounds. And while police investigate to try to figure out the exact motive, grief counselors are available by phone for students and teens struggling.
We are dealing with a pandemic.
The director of behavior health at Community Medical Center says now is an important time for parents.
Kids and adolescents may not have the tools that adults may have. Therefore, it's more stressful on them.
What are you suggesting or recommending we do?
Absolutely. I think the number one thing to do is to increase communication. And therefore, if you see any changes, if you see that they're sad, that they are isolating more, they're spending too much time on their laptop or computer, they're not eating well, they're not sleeping well, this is when you have to start asking questions.
Just check on your kids. Don't take it for granted that, because it happened in somebody else's household, that it can't happen in yours.
In Stockton, Melinda Meza, KCRA 3 News. Joviani Smith is described as a bright and
Yes, we did it. So I know you guys don't know why I'm saying this, but Alec and Darcel know. I pulled it off. And so there she is, that beautiful child of God, full of life, full of promise. And then she took her life, And then that doctor mentioned, one thing he mentioned was talk, talk, talk. The mother mentioned talk, talk, talk. The other dad mentioned talk, talk, talk. The other parents in the UK said talk, talk, freaking talk. Know your kids, know your child. This is a hard enough thing for you and I, more so for the children. And so we're going to move right along. And so what they said later on in the news, later on when I was looking, I saw that there had been 5 reports of teen suicides in the Sacramento, Stockton, and Oakdale areas in the past 2 weeks, according to the rest of the news, right, in that particular news. So that's called a suicide cluster. I mentioned that because those of you who live in San Antonio, you know that, or maybe you don't, but as of November 2019 through February 14, 2020, we had 5 suicides in San Antonio. 5, all age 12 through 20. As a matter of fact, the person who died on Valentine's Day was my colleague's son. She's a pediatrician. She is. And her 20-year-old son killed himself. It happens to the best of us. It happens to the best of us. And because of that, I'm planning the first ever in the history of San Antonio Youth Suicide Prevention Summit. I think I'm going to make it virtual the way we're going now. I was supposed to be doing it at the Henry B. Gonzalez Convention Center. So please stay tuned to Darcel. She will have all the information about that. If you all want to join, if you want to be speakers, whatever, just have Darcel contact me and we'll make it happen. Okay, and on that note, I'm going to ask everyone to please lower your gaze and let us observe 40 seconds of silence. We're going to do 2 activities right now. We're going to do 40 seconds of silence for all those who have been lost to suicide. And then we're going to do 1 minute of silence for all those who have been lost to police brutality in America, black, white, brown, or yellow, but of course, because I'm black, black for sure. So I'm going to do the first is going to be 40 seconds, and then we're going to just roll into 1 minute, beginning now. So silence, please. Thank you so much. That was exactly 1 minute and 40 seconds. I appreciate your cooperation for leaving the chat room kind of vacant while we're doing that. And thank you all so much for doing this, by the way. So believe it or not, as bad as 1 suicide every 40 seconds is or was, the WHO actually predicted that by the year 2020, which is where we are right now, was going to be 1 suicide every 20 seconds. However, as of last night, the numbers are 1 every 26.2 seconds. So here's the problem with that though. Most suicides are actually not recorded as suicides. Most people that kill themselves most families do not talk about it because of that big word called stigma, right? So based on the ones that we know, we're thinking is 1 every 20 seconds. Imagine if we really truly had all suicides recorded. As you might or might not know, suicide is number 2 for children, is the second leading cause of death for children aged 10 through 34, right? So that's the youth. Second only to accidents. So if it's second only to accidents, that means that some of those suicides, some of those accidents might actually have been suicides, right? We don't know for sure. If I run into a tree and kill myself and I die, you don't know that I wasn't trying to kill myself. I mean, maybe the forensics will do whatever they're doing. Bottom line is I'm dead. So almost accidental overdoses were that, accidental, but they're still overdoses and they still die. And bringing it home to teens specifically, there's a game called Space Monkey, or the hanging game, or the choking game, where teenagers choke each other until they pass out, or they choke themselves, hang themselves until they pass out for a high, right? Many, many children have died doing that. We had 1,400 deaths reported in 2016 from that alone. So it is very, very serious for me, okay? See, suicide is a huge deal for me. And so what do all these kids have in common? The kids that I've talked about, not the ones in my story, but the 3 children that we just featured. So please respond in the chat box. Tell me, what do all these 3 kids have in common? So you're welcome to please respond in the chat box. Let me see how you guys are so awesome. Darcel, give her. So had miss being in the office. They want to be accepted. Okay, that's one. Very good. I like that. Feeling lost. That's good. Social media. That's a good one. That's a very, very good one. They all have social media. What else? Isolation is big. One parent in a home only. No, actually, the dad lived with the mom, but the dad just felt alone, feeling hopeless. I like hopeless. I like isolation. I like bullied. I always talk about bullying. My next book, my 4th book is called What If My Child is a Bully? So be on the lookout for that. What If My Child is a Bully? Should come out by the end of this month. Bullying, true, they're all experiencing the unknown. Good. Scared and fearful. Yes. Appears it came as a surprise. Very good. Someone that says surprise is awesome, because a lot of suicides are usually surprises. I didn't say all, I said a lot. More than half of people who die by suicide have never had a diagnosis of mental illness. Majority of people who have mental illness do not die by suicide. As a matter of fact, more than 90% of people who have mental illness do not die by suicide. They thrive. So that is very, very important. But the person who said it the most was someone who said not adjusting. Underlying mental health condition. So you see, so Viola said that she suspected that. I wonder if they had an underlying mental health situation. And I'm going back to saying that the answer is no. They don't need to have anything underlying. We have the one girl who had autism, yes, but the little boy's father said he did not have diagnosis of mental illness. The girl's mother said she did not have that. I have been suicidal. I did not have a diagnosis of mental illness before I was suicidal. I did not have any diagnosis of mental illness today after that period has passed. What I had was a series of unfortunate events that led me to become suicidal. If I had killed myself then, they would have told my kids that I had mental illness. So please disabuse your mind from that today. After listening to a talk with Dr. Lulu, don't ever think mental illness when you hear suicide ever again. And there's another talk that I give. And if you guys invite me, I'll come give the talk at your establishment. It's called Suicide, ? Think mental anguish, not mental illness. Pressure, stress, feelings of being overwhelmed. Very, very good. Very good. Very good. Without you don't need mental illness to be stressed and pressured and feeling overwhelmed. All of you guys already told me that in the box here, right? All of you already told me that. Ashamed of their choices. Maybe, I don't know, but they can't talk to family is critical. A lot of times they feel alone and that they have no hope. This is what I'm talking about. I love it. I love it. And of course, like Sandra said, momentary feelings of loneliness and isolation. My 5th book is called 100 Things You Should Do Before You Jump. My 5th book is called 100 Things You Should Do Before You Jump. Because I am a living testimony of the fact that I have been suicidal. You want to know why? I had just become divorced. I had just become a single mother of 3 kids. I am Nigerian. And in Nigeria, when you're divorced, they basically kick you to the curb and just throw you away, okay? My ex-husband's family completely ostracized us. And then I joined the military, and I had to go through training, and I became the commander. And then I had to do what they call a manning assist, and left the family for 8 weeks. And then, all of those things I was not ready for those things. So acting on momentary feelings is so true. Feeling there's no way out. That's exactly right. If you know what is path worm, one of the symptoms there is entrapment, very, very good. Friends or family, yes, that die by suicide. So we don't use the word commit. But thank you, Mary Lou. We don't use the word commit. Commit is an old word. They don't use that anymore. It's like mental retardation. Nobody says that anymore, okay? Failing others and having too strong, yes! Failing others and having too strong, this is so true because the biggest bully ever is when you bully yourself. And that's one of the questions I usually ask people when I'm giving a talk. Who is the biggest bully? Everybody says verbal bully, cyber bully, physical bully. No, the internal bully is the worst one. So when you have that strong conviction that you're of no good and you're not good enough, which we all go through, that is the problem, internal bully. Thank you so much, Darcel. So we're going to go on. Y'all are so awesome. So that's basically it in a nutshell. You know, those kids felt like they had nowhere to go. But the main thing is, honestly, it all boils down to lack of appropriate coping skills. It all boils down to that. You and I, we've said that we're stressed out during the quarantine. And let me tell you something, going back to work doesn't really fix it because we still have a pandemic, right? And honestly, if you're having issues with your husband or your wife, you can go to work while you like. When you come back, guess what? He's still there. So going to work is a little bit of respite, but when you're coming back home, that stress starts coming up in your mind again. So lack of appropriate coping skills is critical. All three of them had issues during the quarantine because they couldn't go out or, you know, manifestations of that. So that is true. Lacking coping skills. A bunch of you nailed it on that one. Thank you so much. So today's teens and trauma, today, in today's world, right this moment, on June 10th, we had just experienced murder. Open daylight, that broad daylight murder of 3 Black people, Breonna Taylor, Tony McDade, and George Floyd. Whether you're white or Black, you're gonna have to have experienced some degree of trauma. Otherwise, you're not human. I'm just gonna come out and say it. So collateral damage or collateral trauma is real. Vicarious trauma through those scenes, watching it. And you know how teenagers are, they're all about their phones. They're constantly watching these things play out. I don't know whether these 3 kids watch it or not, but I don't need to. Other kids do. The stress of watching traumatic events on TV and smartphones, it lingers in your bodies and your minds. And yes, you start talking to yourself, oh my God, what if I'm next? What if I'm next is real? If your friend dies because of police brutality, you are in pain. I know I'm in pain because I have 3 Black sons who have an X marked on their back because we live in America. This is wrong. So this is real, okay? So I wanted to talk about the fact that just know that a lot of my teenagers that come to see me, they're all anxious because, oh my God, they don't know what's happening in the world. They can't cope. And so what I do is I do a lot of mindfulness exercises and I teach them breathing and I teach them my 3-step method, which I call my Dr. Lulu's 3 A's. And so if you want me to come and teach that at your establishment, let me know and I'll come, okay? So we're gonna just touch a little bit on adverse childhood experiences. So I know most people know this. What's missing on this list here is vicarious trauma. That's what's missing. So that's why I put this list here. None of them there says vicarious trauma, but we do have, it's a real thing. So they should scrap this and add vicarious trauma to that. And actually add being Black to that. I mean, this is real stuff. There's epigenetics, there's generational trauma, there's real trauma that happens to Black people. And if you don't get it yet, then I don't know what to tell you, right? Because this is real. This is real. My sons were profiled in my neighborhood just a couple of weeks ago. They grew up here. They went to high school and middle school and elementary school here. Yet, you know, all of a sudden when they leave my house, they're suddenly a threat to someone who has a gun. How is that even possible? So please, there's something to talk about teenagers and trauma and not mention that when I'm living it in my own house every day. Every time my kids leave the house, I ask them to come back. I say that. I say, please come back. And then one day my baby son said, Mom, why you always ask us to come back? I said, because Trayvon Martin didn't come back. George Floyd didn't come back. I have to say that because as a Nigerian woman, when I say that, that's a prayer and a blessing over you, that my ancestors and the universe will bring my child home. It is a real and present danger for me. And if you don't know that, that's too bad, but this is what I'm living with every day. So truth be told, kids and adolescents do not have the tools that, and even adults don't even have it, you know? So let's type in the chat box, Are adults really doing better? Let's go back to the chat box and see what you ladies and gents have to say. Are we really doing better? My kids are having a hard time, Katrina said. I have a no with 2 exclamation marks from Jennifer. They're not doing better. Let's be awesome. Our daughter called home crying. She's terrified that her dad is going to be killed. This is true. And isn't that trauma for you, Mom? Isn't that trauma for you, Jacqueline? That is traumatic. Probably not. No, I don't believe so. This is true. I mean, you don't have to all answer if you don't want to, but I know in my heart that I was not doing okay. And some days I still am not doing okay. We're not really doing better. We don't know anything, but what we need to do is do our best to become grounded first, and then we can help ground our kids. So critical point is checking with your teens often. That's what most of the people, the parents were saying that. Check in with your teens, make sure that they are okay, because their norm has been turned upside down. All this staying at home, teenagers are about, if teenagers are weird, okay? They don't want to go to school because they don't like school when they have to go to school, right? Then you ask them to stay home. They don't like home because they don't want to stay home because they have to stay at home. It is what teenagers do. It's the beauty of being a teenager. I like to call myself a queenager because I'm over 50. So I'm a queenager. But this is what, they don't want to go to school. Or they huff and puff. Oh, I hate school. I hate school. Then we ask you to stay home. No, I hate home. I hate home. But it is what it is. And there's not a whole lot you can do about it. It's just what teenagers do. Okay, so parents are key. Like I told you guys, to please remember to take off your mental health worker hat, and let's talk about parents today. You're here as a parent. We have all these things to deal with: psychological, emotional, stressful events, right? Physical trauma, verbal trauma, relationships. Teenagers are about relationships all day. Sexual trauma. Oh my goodness, I did not realize this, that apparently during the holidays and during Christmas and domestic abuse goes up, domestic violence goes up, rapes and co go up. And if you don't believe me, look at the news. Since the quarantine, we've had tripling and quadrupling of domestic violence and rape and abuse and sexual abuse. Oh my God. But then again, I don't blame them. The federal government thought it was wise enough to open the liquor stores when people have no work. Oh my God. Anyway, needless to say, I want you as a parent to focus on those. Focus on these things that I've written down here, and maybe many more. I'm sure I didn't catch everything. So what do parents do? So first, be grounded, right? Do your own deep breathing, do your own regrounding exercises. Everybody knows about the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I don't think we have enough time to do that, but I was going to do that, but I want us to have time for questions. So must be fully present, right? Be calm, be rational, be mindful of everything I've told you that teenagers are going through. They miss life just as much as you miss life. So give them some grace. Give yourself some grace, and then give your child some grace. Let them play more video games if you need to, okay? My kids have just mastered the video games, but guess what? My middle son just graduated with honors. He got the dean's list while studying at home. It can be done. My eldest son is going to graduate from Stanford this weekend with honors. He's going to get the award, the highest honor in his arts department. So it happens, and he finished semester at home. It can be done where you just leave them to do what they want to do. As long as they do their schoolwork, it can happen. Get help with telemedicine if you have to, but remember to be kind and be gracious. Please, parents, talk with your children, help them connect with friends. Ask them to call their friends. I did that with my kids. Have you called your friends? Have you called your friends? Have you called your friends? Call your friend. Do a Zoom call with your friends. Go call your friends. I make them do it. I say, do it. And then I call my family members and have them talk to their grandpa and their uncles and aunties. I did that. What we did was every Saturday we had a Zoom family meeting at the beginning. We don't do that anymore now, but we did a Zoom family meeting every Saturday during the quarantine. I wanted to know how my parents are doing and they're in Nigeria. Help them connect, and that's what's really important in the end is relationships. Ease up on things like healthy eating and habits or school. Well, come on now, give them a break, okay? Just preserve the family relationship. I'm not the best parent, but I'm mindful enough to know that I need to do that for them. Okay, all the parents that we talked about are all wanting the other parents to please talk to their teenagers. And lastly, 7 positive coping strategies for your teenagers. Have them talk it out. Have them take a break, call time out, and let's do some grounding exercises. You can do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You can just do an awareness check. Let's just talk about what are your feet doing? What are your hands doing right now? How are you feeling right this moment? And one scaling question I learned at my last event was, ask the child, if in an ideal world, in a dream world, if there was magic, and if I could do magic, what one thing would I do to make your day better, to make your life better? Oh my God. Your child will tell you, that your child will tell you, first of all, they say, Mom, seriously? Yes, seriously. Then you say, you know what, Mom, I don't like the way you XYZ. Work on that. Because that is, you give them a corner of safety, and you tell them, tell me what one thing can I do? You can do the same thing with your spouse. You can do the same thing with your honey. You can. It's called a scaling question. I call it the magic question. And then try to work on that, okay? So doing things that they love doing, just, some of those kids that kill themselves for staying at home, honestly, I would say they could have probably gone for family hiking. They could have probably gone for bike riding in the neighborhood. I mean, I'm just throwing these things out because I know there's a thing that my kids and I did to keep us sane. I exercise twice a day now because I go too many times to the pantries. So I exercise twice a day, relaxation techniques, breathing exercises. Positive self-talk for me should be the first thing on this list, really, because that is what's going to tell you that you're not good enough, you deserve to die, you're terrible, nobody loves you, you're a waste of time, you deserve to die, and you deserve to die some more, and then you kill yourself. And then, of course, as a parent, you must model good behavior, of course. And I mentioned my events. If you're a father and you're listening to me, I have an event coming up on the 27th of June. It's called Dr. Lulu's Dear Dad Virtual Summit. You can find it on Eventbrite. It's not a free event. I'm done doing free events already. That was last year. So please sign up if you have a father. Let them sign up. If you're a mom that's holding it down as a single parent, sign up also. You can get your husband to sign up. It's called Dr. Lulu's Dear Dad Virtual Summit. Maybe Darcel can put the link for us. I don't know. Okay, so in summary, we talked about the 3 suicides of teens during the quarantine. We looked at suicide clusters, which is a big thing for teenagers, huge thing for adolescents. We discussed the fact that most of those kids lacked appropriate coping skills. That's the truth. And then we talked about some of the things that are traumatizing our teens today, right? Today's teens and trauma. And then, of course, we looked at ACEs a little bit and how today ACEs is just not enough because ACEs does not include quarantine. ACEs does not include all these police killings. ACEs does not include protests. ACEs does not include that, okay? And then, of course, we talked about what parents can do and 7 positive coping skills. Yes! So while you ask your questions, I'm going to hop onto this page. This little guy, he graduates in 3 days with honors from Stanford. I'm so proud of him. That's my first man-child. Yes, that's a parent's bragging moment. I'm excited. He's not happy because he doesn't get to wear his cap and gown and walk across the stage. I'm not happy because I don't get to go to Stanford and be the mother of the day. I'm Nigerian. Yes, we're loud like that. We like to dress up and act, all cool. But I'm going to do it my way, the way that I can. So if you need coaching from Dr. Lulu, because I do telecoaching, holla at your girl at 802-768-1180. If you need a speaker at your event, all 213 of you need someone to come and keep it real at wherever your establishment is, holla at your girl, holla at Darcel. Darcel, don't tell them how much I charge, okay? I'll do my talking for myself. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, I'm there, okay? TeenAlive.com is my regular website for my speaking engagements. YouthHealthCenter.com is my practice website. My podcast is called Suicide Pages. I drop 2 episodes every week. We dropped 1 yesterday. The second one is going to be dropped today. Yesterday's one was awesome. I was talking to Dr. Tyler Randall Black. He's a suicidologist from Canada, and he just dropped all kinds of nuggets talking about the fact that mental illness is not the root cause of suicide. And my blog, which is getting a lot of love right now, it's called Words by a Black Butterfly, because in my blog this month, I wrote 15 commandments, Dr. Lulu's 15 commandments of how to discuss, how to teach your children about race relations or racism or something like that. So, but anyway, Words by a Black Butterfly, check it out, subscribe for some more goodness, okay? And on that note, I think I'm gonna ask you guys to tell me what you see in this picture as my hosts tell me the questions. Sorry if it took longer, my bad.
Awesome, thank you so much. That was very inspirational, thank you. Yes, we're gonna read some of the questions so that when it's recorded, we can hear the questions with the answers. So Darcel, you wanna take the first one?
Yes, do some of our students see the isolation and quarantine as a punishment?
Do some of our students I don't know. I think it all depends on the individual. As a pediatrician, I'm actually a real physician. I don't see that as a punishment. I see it as the world is just helpless right now. We don't know what to do. We don't know if we're going or coming. It came from China, and then before we could say Jack Robinson, China was able to control it. But look at the extreme measures China had to go through to be able to control the epidemic, the pandemic. And then Americans were just not ready to go through those extreme measures. And it's like the Spanish would say, es verdad. The French would say, c'est la vérité. I mean, we have to be willing to do the hard things for things to change. And if we don't change, change is not going to come. So I don't think it's punishment. I think it's reality. And I think we just all have to learn how to cope with it. I've had to pivot. 2 of my 3 streams of income completely dried out. I've had to make a pivot and deal with that, you know, just as an individual myself. So, but thank you for the question. I hope I answered it. I don't know if I did.
Yes. Jennifer asked, would you have the same concerns about your sons if they were in Nigeria as having a target on their back?
And the answer is absolutely not. In Nigeria, where we have what we call tribalism and ethnicity or ethnic crisis or whatever, we don't, you see, the thing about Nigeria is it's kind of unique in the sense that we can see each other as the same color. So technically we can't see the enemy, if that makes any sense, okay? Because they're all the same color. In America, I can see the enemy. He's wearing a blue uniform, or he's white and just feels threatened because I just happen to be walking my dog in the park and looking at birds. And, you know, something as silly and unexplainable as that. Like, you know, you're calling the police knowing fully well that if the police comes, they're going to kill that man, and then ask questions later. So Karen, I'm saying to you, if you're Karen, forgive me, but that's what the social media calls them now. Stop calling the police on innocent Black people. My sons were profiled while they were running, exercising in the neighborhood. They had their exercise clothes on. They had their headphones on. They're brother and brother. They were just going about their business. Well, why do you call the police on that? What kind of nonsense is that? They grew up here. We've lived here for 9 years. So no, the answer is absolutely not. They're not going to have that problem. Nigeria has its own problem like every country does. But racism is an American thing. It's an American thing. I mean, maybe not only America, but you know what I mean.
Thank you for the answer. With children staying home, it brings on an issue because they are getting used to being home, and how can we get them out without being scared?
Honestly, that question I ask myself every day. My son just came back from going to see, well, he went to pick up a slice of cake for me from my friend, first of all, but then he had to go drop off his brother's books at the library over here at Brandeis High School, and he told his brother to stay home. Say, no, stay home, I'll go. He's never done that before. He's never done that before. And before he left, I said to him, make sure you come back. I say, when you're going out, just wear your mask until we're told to not wear masks anymore. I'm scared about it too. And you know, there's 2 ways. I'm scared about the pandemic, you know, and I'm an outdoors person, so I'm scared about the pandemic, that is true. But I'm also scared about just being Black and being outside in Texas. That's a whole other issue. So if you're Black and you're in this forum, I know you know exactly what I'm talking about. And so a long time ago, I said, I'm not going to tell my kids anything. I'm not having any talk with my boys. I'm not going to apologize because they're Black. I'm not going to apologize because somebody feels threatened about something. You know, the word fear is false evidence that appears real. You know, you're afraid of my son. I'm afraid of you too. It means like, it doesn't make any sense. So unfortunately, I'll say to the parents, you need to be grounded first, and you just need to take it bite-sized pieces. Just say, okay, we're going to go for 10, 20 minutes. We're going to get about our business, and we're going to come back home. That's what we're going to do, because the pandemic is still killing people. And after those protests, I don't want to even think about the numbers we're going to get in 2 weeks. I don't want to even think about it, because a lot of those protesters did not have masks on. Okay.
Tell us again about your books and how we can order your books.
Oh yeah, thank you so much. So you can purchase my book on my website, teenalife.com/books, or you can get it on Amazon. Just type my first name, my middle initial is L as in Liza or Lima, and my last name is Umeh, U-M-E-H. And you can get my books from Amazon as well. And please, if you do get it from Amazon, I beg you, please leave me a review. So my first book was called How to Raise Well-Rounded Children. And my second book was called, it's called A Teen's Life. And I showed it to you guys earlier on, maybe I'll show it to you again. But yeah, my third book is actually called What If My Child is a Bully? But what I did was I stopped production, quote unquote, and then the last 3 or 4 days, I've been converting my last blog, which has been viewed over 1,000 times, into a book, a tiny little handy book. It's called How to Teach Your Child About Racism. And I use the word child versus children. I use child because I want you to make it individual, because each child will understand it differently. So it's called How to Teach Your Child About Racism. That's my book 2 of the How To series. And the What If My Child is a Bully is how to recognize bully behavior in your child. So that's my third how-to book. And like I said, the next book is going to be called 100 Things to Do Before You Jump. And then the next book after that is called Girl Child Interrupted, talking about how girl child or girl children are being, their lives are being interrupted by whatever, either sex slaves or I don't know, but that. But thank you so much. So Amazon or my website, if you buy it from my website, I'm going to be the one to send it to you because that comes straight to me, and it's going to come with some little goodies like my own personal autograph. So when I become famous, which I will, when you have a copy of my book, and then let me know which book you want to purchase, because one of them is for parents, How to Raise Well-Rounded Children, which talks about 16 different character traits you should instill in your kids, like gratitude and resiliency and perseverance and faith and love and things like that. And I talk a little bit about each one, and I love quotes, so I use a lot of quotes. The second book is called A Teen's Life. A Teen's Life. A Teen's Life. Teen as in teenager. And I discuss 12 teenagers. They're fictitious. And I talk about, they write me a Dear Dr. Lulu letter. They tell me what's going on in their lives and why they're suicidal. And I try to answer the questions. And then I discuss what they can do and then what they cannot do. And then one of the girls in the book, believe it or not, in quotes, did not get to me on time. So if you know what I mean. But I think it's a fun book to read. I think it's a hard book to read. My mother is gangster, but she could not finish reading it because she said it was really traumatizing for her. So, but yeah, thank you so much for asking about it. Please get the book. I think it's a pretty good book, even if I have to say so myself.
Yes, I'm going to have to look those up. Here's a nice twist. Yolanda, I know we've been talking about the traumatic effects of the current situations, but Yolanda had a good point. Although the pandemic has been a scary ordeal, I found that there has been great benefits such as family time and appreciation for what we take for granted every day.
Absolutely. I see that. What do you think? I agree with you 110%. I was really scared at the beginning of the pandemic, at the beginning of the shutdown, because one son is at Texas Tech and one son is at Stanford. And I just didn't know if they would make it home on time. Once they made it home on time, I was home. I was happy. I was thankful. And what we did was we have family game nights, then we have karaoke, then we exercise together. Then what we did, one really, really cool thing we're doing is all 5 of us, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, all 5 of us take turns to cook. And so that has been awesome. And one of my sons does not like cooking and one of them loves to cook. And it's just interesting to see, what they come up with when it's their turn to cook. So that's been something that we've done together. And then, like I said, I planted gardens and they've helped me rearrange the house. And it's just been fun. But then, like my son said the other day, Mom, there's only so much, he said, there's only so much video games can help. I'm bored. He's my son, oh my God. And then the kid across the street from our house, like literally across the street, killed himself a few weeks ago. So that was actually what triggered me to create an online course. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention that my online course is called Youth Suicide 101. I don't know. Wait a minute. It's called Understanding Youth Suicide. It's called Understanding Youth Suicide, Why Our Kids Kill Themselves. And what I did with that course was essentially something similar to this, but in a deeper scale. And I did a crowdsourcing on Facebook and I said, if there was such a course, what would you want to know? And I got like hundreds of responses. So I collated all the responses and I created the course. And the one thing that my son said when I asked him, what would you like to know in a course like that? My baby son said, Mom, how would I recognize if my friend is suicidal? And I was like, oh my God, that's so deep. So of course I added that to the to the class. But yeah, thank you. Great questions. Great questions.
Also, thank you so much. And I did have some questions about this this is recorded, and
Okay.
we will have that available on our website. And also, Dr. Lulu, are you going to provide the presentation for them to review on the website as well?
Absolutely. I like I told you, I said you recorded, it's yours. But if you want me to give you the what's it called, the PDF version, it's all yours. I'm not going to change anything. I think I'll probably just add my online course to it, and then I'll send it. Yeah. But yeah,
That'd be
absolutely.
great. Okay,
Yes.
great. We'll send that information out on a follow-up email tomorrow with the link to do an evaluation for everybody and to print off your CEU certificate. Following this webinar, you'll also get a link to do that as well. If you have any
Yeah,
issues,
got nominated to do a adolescent symposium. Yay! I'm excited. I'm reading the comments. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Great presentation. We love your enthusiasm and your energy, and we really appreciate you doing this webinar today for us.
Yes, sir. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Darcel, for coordinating the CEU. We appreciate you too. And that concludes our webinar for today. So look for those emails to come out with more information.